The midday sun beat down relentlessly on the parking lot of the Monterrey Distribution Company on the outskirts of the industrial city of Monterrey, Nuevo León. Don Roberto Garza, a 58-year-old businessman with more than 30 years in the logistics business, checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. He was waiting for Joaquin Morales, an experienced truck driver with whom he had worked for years to transport a special load of machinery to Guadalajara. Joaquin still hasn't arrived, boss? Asked Ramiro, the cargo supervisor, a burly man wearing a yellow reflective vest. No, and he's already 20 minutes late. This isn't like him, replied Don Roberto, wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. This cargo is worth more than 2 million pesos. I can't risk him being late. At that moment, the roar of a diesel engine echoed at the entrance to the company. An imposing bright red Kenwu trailer with the characteristic chrome emblem on the front slowly advanced toward the loading area. The cab was impeccably clean, and a small image of the Virgin of Guadalupe could be seen on the windshield. Don Roberto stood up, adjusting the white gualavera he was wearing, but his expression of relief turned to confusion when the trailer door opened and instead of the weathered face of Joaquin Morales, a young woman no more than 28 years old appeared. She nimbly climbed down from the cab. She was wearing tight jeans, brown cowboy boots, a black t-shirt, and a cap with the logo of a transport company. Her dark hair was tied back in a ponytail, and her suntanned face was framed by determined green eyes. She was carrying a folder with documents in her hand. Good morning. I'm looking for Mr. Roberto Garza, she said in a firm, clear voice, extending her hand. Don Roberto looked her up and down, visibly bewildered. Ramiro and three other workers who were nearby stopped what they were doing to watch the scene. I am Roberto Garza, he replied without shaking her hand. And who are you, young lady? Are you here to look for work in the office? The young woman slowly lowered her hand, maintaining her composure. My name is Valeria Sanchez. I am a certified truck driver for the company Transporte del Norte. I am here to pick up the cargo bound for Guadalajara. Here are my documents, my federal license, and the service order, she said, opening the folder and showing the perfectly organized papers. Silence fell like a slab over the parking lot. Don Roberto took the documents almost automatically, but his face still reflected disbelief. There must be a mistake, he muttered as he reviewed the papers. I hired Joaquin Morales, a man with experience. This is a high-value load. Don Joaquin had a family emergency. His mother fell ill and is in the hospital in Saltillo, Valeria explained patiently. The company assigned me to the job. I have 5 years of experience driving heavy-duty trailers, certification in specialized freight transport, and a perfect record. 0 accidents, 0 delays, 5 years. Ramiro intervened skeptically, crossing his arms. Sorry, kid, but this isn't driving a little truck. We're talking about more than 20 tons on the highway with slopes and sharp curves. I know exactly what we're talking about, Valeria interrupted, her voice firm but respectful. I've transported industrial machinery from Tijuana to Chiapas. I know every kilometer of Highway 15 and 15D. I've driven in rain, fog, and heavy traffic. And if you check my records, you'll see that all my evaluations are above average. Don Roberto finished reviewing the papers. Legally, everything was in order. The license was authentic, the insurance policy was valid, and the service order had the official stamp of Transporte del Norte, a reputable company. But something inside him resisted. Look, Valeria, he began, using a softer, almost paternal tone. It's nothing personal, okay? But this is serious business. This shipment has to arrive in Guadalajara before noon tomorrow. It's more than 700 kilometers. Do you really think you can do it? Valeria looked him straight in the eye. Mr. Garza, I'm not asking you to believe in me. I'm asking you to trust my credentials and my company. If there were a single legal or technical reason to refuse this service, I would have already done so. But there isn't. She paused. I understand your concern. I really do. But I've worked very hard to get here, and I'm not going to let you down. Don Roberto sighed deeply and looked at Ramiro, who simply shrugged his shoulders doubtfully. All right, he finally said, but I want to talk to your supervisor before you leave. Of course, Valeria replied, taking out her cell phone. Here is the direct number for my coordinator, Engineer Martinez. As Don Roberto walked away to make the call, Valeria turned toward the trailer to check the tires and lights. Ramiro approached her, watching her with curiosity. Have you really been driving these monsters for 5 years? He asked, this time with less hostility. 5.5 years, Valeria corrected, bending down to check the pressure of a tire with a digital gauge. My father was a truck driver. I grew up between repair shops and highways. I learned to change oil before I learned to put on makeup. And you're not afraid? I mean, a woman alone on the road. Afraid. Valeria stood up and looked at him. Drivers who drive while tired or drunk are scary. People who don't check their vehicles before leaving are scary. I take all the necessary precautions. I rest well. I have GPS tracking. I communicate with base every 2 hours. And I carry all the required safety equipment. I leave nothing to chance. Ramiro nodded slowly, beginning to change his perception. Don Roberto returned 15 minutes later. His expression was difficult to read. Engineer Martinez has assured me that you are one of his best operators. He said in a tone that mixed resignation and curiosity. He says that if anyone can do this job, it's you. That's right, sir. All right, Ramiro, proceed with the loading. For the next hour, Valeria personally supervised every step of the loading process. She verified that each piece of machinery was properly secured with industrial straps. She checked the fastenings 3 times, took photographs with her phone to document the process, and made sure the weight distribution was balanced. Don Roberto watched her from his office through the window while drinking coffee. He couldn't help but be impressed by the young woman's professionalism, although part of him still harbored doubts. When everything was ready, Valeria went to the office to sign the final documents. The stamp here and here, Don Roberto indicated, and I need you to call me every 3 hours to confirm your location. No problem. I'll leave in 15 minutes. First, I'll check the engine and fluid levels. Hey, Valeria, Don Roberto hesitated for a moment. Be very careful. And it's not because you're a woman, it's because that cargo is very valuable to me. Valeria smiled for the first time. I know, Mr. Garza, and I promise it will arrive in perfect condition. At 2:30 in the afternoon, the red trailer left the distributor for Monterey with a powerful roar. Valeria adjusted her rearview mirrors, checked the GPS, and tuned into a radio station playing norteño music. As the trailer merged onto Highway 40 toward Saltillo, Don Roberto remained in the parking lot watching as the vehicle disappeared over the horizon. May God be with you, Ramiro murmured at his side. Yes, Don Roberto agreed. I hope so. What neither of them knew was that this trip would be much more complicated than anyone could have imagined. The arid landscape of northern Mexico stretched out on both sides of the highway. Valeria maintained a constant speed of 85 km/h, attentive to every movement of the trailer. Her hands, firmly on the steering wheel, showed the marks of hard work, calluses on her fingers, short, clean nails, and a small scar on the back of her right hand from a mechanical accident years ago. She had been driving for an hour and a half when her cell phone, connected to the hands-free system, rang. Don Roberto Garza appeared on the screen. Good afternoon, Mr. Garza, she replied professionally. Valeria, how are you doing? Everything is fine. I just passed Saltillo. The trailer is running perfectly. The load is secure and traffic is light. I'm on schedule. Very good. Very good. Call me in 3 hours. I will. Valeria hung up and smiled slightly. She knew Don Roberto was nervous, but she also knew that the best way to earn his trust was with results, not words. At 5 p.m., as she was crossing the Zacatecas region, the sky began to cloud over. Valeria checked the weather app on her phone during a brief stop to refuel at a Pemex gas station. Where are you going, young lady? Asked the attendant, an older man with a white mustache and a cowboy hat. Guadalajara, sir. I still have about 4.5 hours to go, and there's a forecast for heavy rain ahead, near Aguas Calientes. Be careful, the road gets slippery. Thanks for the warning. I always drive carefully. As she paid for the wire, 3 young men standing nearby watched her with obvious surprise. One of them, dressed in construction work clothes, approached her. Hey, do you really drive that beast? He asked in a tone that was somewhere between mocking and incredulous. Yes, I drive it, Valeria replied without turning around, checking her receipt. No offense, but I've never seen a woman driving a truck that size before. Well, today's your lucky day. Now you've seen one, she said calmly, putting away her wallet. Excuse me. Wait, Wait, the young man insisted, blocking her way with a smile. If you need help with anything, I know about mechanics. I could ride with you for a while. Valeria looked him straight in the eye with a serious expression. I don't need help, and I suggest you step aside before this gets uncomfortable. Her tone was firm, making it clear she wasn't in the mood for games. Surprised by her response, the young man took a step back and raised his hands in surrender. Forget it. Relax. It was just a comment. Valeria returned to her trailer, climbed into the cab, and locked the door. She had learned early in her career that showing vulnerability was a mistake. In this world, she had to be 10 times more professional, more prepared, and stronger than any man in her position. An hour later, the rain began to fall. At first, it was scattered drops. Then it turned into a dense downpour that reduced visibility to less than 50 meters. Valeria turned on her emergency lights, slowed down to 60 km/h, and turned her windshield wipers on full blast. Come on, she muttered to herself, focused on the white line on the road. It's just water. You can handle this. Traffic on the highway had slowed considerably. Most vehicles had opted to stop at rest areas or pullovers until the storm passed. But Valeria knew that if she stopped now, she would lose valuable time and arrive late in Guadalajara. Suddenly, through the curtain of rain, she saw the hazard lights of a vehicle stopped on the shoulder. As she approached, she saw a pickup truck leaning dangerously toward the ditch, with a rear tire stuck in the mud. A woman in her 40s and two small children were standing next to the vehicle, completely soaked. Valeria felt an internal conflict. If she stopped, she would lose time, but leaving that family there in the pouring rain and in the middle of the night was not an option for her. She turned on her trailer's flashing lights and began to carefully pull over to the shoulder, about 20 meters ahead of the truck. She put on a waterproof jacket, grabbed her flashlight, and got out in the rain. Ma'am, are you okay? Valeria shouted over the noise of the storm. The woman, her hair plastered to her face and hugging her two children, turned with an expression of relief mixed with desperation. Yes, but my truck is stuck. I've called for help, but no one stops. And my husband is in Guadalajara. Valeria approached to assess the situation. The right rear tire was half sunk in the mud. The truck was a relatively new Ford F-150. Do you have chains or something to pull it out? Valeria asked. No, I don't have anything. I just want to get my kids out of here. Valeria thought quickly. In her trailer, she carried emergency equipment, a tow chain, reflective signs, and basic tools. She had helped other drivers before. It's okay. I'll get you out. Get in your truck with the kids so they don't get any wetter. Really? The woman looked at her in surprise. By yourself? By myself, Valeria confirmed with a small smile. Trust me. For the next 20 minutes, Valeria worked in the rain. She connected the tow chain from her trailer to the rear hitch of the truck, placed reflective signs to warn other vehicles, and coordinated instructions with the woman. When I signal you with the flashlight, accelerate gently. Not full throttle. Gently. Valeria shouted from outside with precise, controlled movements. Valeria climbed into her trailer and began to move forward slowly. The chain tightened. The trailer's engine roared with power as the truck's tires began to turn. For a moment, it looked like it wasn't going to work. But then, with a sucking sound, the truck pulled out of the mud and was back on solid ground on the shoulder. Valeria climbed down again in the rain, disconnected the chain, and approached the truck window. The woman had tears mixed with rain on her face. I don't know how to thank you, she said in a broken voice. You saved me. How much do I owe you? You don't owe me anything, Valeria replied. Just make sure you get to your destination safely and drive carefully. The road is very slippery. But what's your name? At least let me know your name. Valeria Sanchez. And really, don't worry. Just take care of your children. God bless you, Valeria. Truly, God bless you. As the truck drove away with its flashing lights on, Valeria returned to her trailer completely soaked, but with a sense of satisfaction. She changed out of her wet jacket, dried her hair with a towel she had in her backpack, and checked her watch. 7:15 p.m. She had lost almost half an hour. Her phone rang. It was Don Roberto again. Valeria, where are you? You should have called 15 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Mr. Garza. I had to help someone in an emergency on the highway, a family with children stuck in the mud. There was a silence on the other end. You stopped to help, in this weather and with my cargo. Yes, sir, it was necessary. But I'm on my way again. I'll be in Guadalajara tomorrow before noon, as we agreed. Another silence. All right, but don't stop again. Understood? Understood? Valeria accelerated again, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The rain began to gradually ease off, and by 8:30 p.m., the sky had partially cleared. In the distance, the lights of the city of Aguascalientes shone like little terrestrial stars. She decided to make a brief stop at a rest area to eat something. She hadn't eaten since noon and needed energy. She parked the trailer in a lighted area next to three other trucks, grabbed her backpack, and headed to the small restaurant in the rest area. The place was modest, with 6 tables, a counter, and the aroma of freshly made tacos and beans. 3 truck drivers, all men between the ages of 40 and 60, were sitting at a table eating and talking. When they saw Valeria enter, their conversation stopped briefly. She ordered steak tacos, beans, and a large coffee. She sat down at a table in a corner and began checking her phone while she waited for her food. In her Transporte del Norte company WhatsApp group, there were several messages from her colleagues asking how her trip was going. Hey, girl. The voice of one of the truck drivers interrupted her thoughts. He was a burly man wearing a baseball cap and a flannel shirt. Are you a dispatcher or are you dating a truck driver around here? Valeria looked up. I'm a dispatcher. Seriously? The man seemed genuinely surprised. Where are you from? Monterrey. I'm going to Guadalajara. Wow, you've got guts. I'm Esteban. I've been doing this for 25 years. He introduced himself, extending his hand from his table. And these are Martin and Luis. Valeria nodded cordially but did not get up to shake hands. She had learned to maintain a certain professional distance. Nice to meet you. I'm Valeria. How do you manage to drive those monsters as a woman? Asked Martin, a thin man with a mustache. No offense, eh? Just curious. The same way you do, I suppose, Valeria replied in a neutral tone. By studying, practicing, and being responsible. Yes, but Luis, the youngest of the 3, interjected. I mean, aren't you afraid? There are a lot of bad people on the roads, robberies, assaults. That's why I prepare myself. I carry a GPS tracker. I communicate regularly with my base. I don't accept help from strangers. And I never drive if I feel tired. I also took self-defense classes. Esteban laughed, but it wasn't mocking. It was genuine admiration. Wow, this girl really knows what she's doing. I like you, Valeria. If you ever need advice or help on the road, you have a friend here. I'm always on the Monterrey, Mexico City route. Thanks, Esteban. I'll keep that in mind. The waitress brought her food and Valeria ate quickly. She had to keep going. When she finished and was about to pay, Esteban approached the counter. It's already paid for, he said with a smile. It's on the house. Well, it's on me. It's rare to see someone with your determination. Take care of yourself, girl. Valeria, surprised by the gesture, smiled genuinely. Thank you, Esteban. Really, have a good trip. You're welcome. And hey, when you get to Guadalajara, send us a message to let us know you arrived safely. Here's my number in case you ever need anything on the road. Esteban gave her a crumpled card with his name and phone number on it. Valeria put it in her pocket and left the restaurant feeling a little lighter. Not everyone was prejudiced. There were good people who recognized effort. It was 10 p.m. when she got back on the road. She had about 250 kilometers to go to Guadalajara. If all went well, she would arrive around 2 a.m. and could rest for a few hours in a motel before delivering the cargo in the morning. The highway was now almost empty. The trailer's lights illuminated the asphalt strip that stretched endlessly ahead. Valeria tuned into a radio station playing regional Mexican music and gently drummed her fingers on the steering wheel to the beat of a song by Los Tigres del Norte. But at 11:30 p.m., when she was about 50 miles from Guadalajara, something unexpected happened. One of the rearview mirrors showed her the flashing lights of a federal police patrol car rapidly approaching from behind. Valeria frowned. She hadn't been speeding. Her documents were in order, and the trailer was running perfectly. She gradually slowed down and pulled over to the shoulder. The patrol car parked behind her. Valeria took out her license and cargo documents and waited. 2 officers got out of the patrol car and approached her with flashlights. One of them knocked on the window. Valeria rolled it down. Good evening, officer. Good evening. License and vehicle documents. Valeria handed everything over. The officer, a man of about 35 with a serious expression, checked the papers with his flashlight. Valeria Sanchez. Yes, sir. Where are you coming from? Monterey. I'm going to Guadalajara with a load of industrial machinery. The second younger officer walked around the trailer with his flashlight, inspecting the cargo from the outside. Are you driving this alone? Asked the first officer skeptically. Yes, sir. I'm a certified operator. We need to check the cargo. Sure, here are the security seals and the merchandise documents. Valeria remained calm, although she felt a slight tension. Everything is in order. The first officer checked the seals carefully. Then he looked at Valeria with an expression she couldn't interpret. Get out of the trailer. We're going to do a full inspection. May I ask why? Routine. Get out. Valeria got out. The next 20 minutes were the longest of her trip. The officers checked the cab, the cargo, without breaking the seals, just inspecting them, and even her personal backpack. Valeria stood next to the trailer, watching silently, her hands visible and cooperating at all times. Finally, the chief officer returned with her documents. Everything is in order. So, can I continue? The officer hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Yes, but be careful. There have been reports of suspicious activity in this area. Trailer thefts. Thank you for the information, officer. I'll be careful. When the patrol car drove away, Valeria climbed back into her trailer and exhaled deeply. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the accumulated adrenaline. She knew that these types of inspections were more frequent for her than for her male colleagues. There was always a reason to doubt, to question, but she also knew she couldn't let that stop her. At 1:45 in the morning, the lights of Guadalajara began to appear on the horizon. Valeria felt a wave of relief and pride. She had made it. Despite the rain, helping her family, the police inspection, and all the questioning, she was there. She found a secure roadside motel where she could park the trailer in a monitored area. She paid for 4 hours of rest and went up to a modest but clean room. Before going to sleep, she sent a WhatsApp message to Don Roberto Garza. Mr. Garza, I'm in Guadalajara now. Tomorrow at 8 a.m., I'll deliver the cargo. Everything is in perfect condition. Good night. Seconds later, the reply arrived. Well done, Valeria. Get some rest. Valeria smiled, left her phone on the nightstand, and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be an important day. The alarm on Valeria's phone went off at 6:30 a.m. Although she had only slept for 4 hours, she got up with renewed energy. She took a quick shower. She changed into clean clothes she had brought in her backpack, dark jeans, a plaid shirt, and her cowboy boots, and went downstairs to check the trailer before sunrise. Guadalajara was beginning to wake up. The cool morning air carried the city's characteristic aroma, a mixture of freshly made tortillas, gasoline, and jacaranda trees. Valeria carried out her usual inspection. Tires, lights, cargo ties, fluid levels. Everything was perfect. At 7:15 a.m., she called Don Roberto. Good morning, Mr. Garza. I'm ready to deliver the cargo. Do you have the exact address and contact information in Guadalajara? Good morning, Valeria. Don Roberto's voice sounded surprisingly cheerful. Yes, I'll send you the details on WhatsApp. The contact is Fernando Ruiz, an engineer with Manufacturas del Bajío. He's a very important customer of mine. He'll be waiting for you at 8 a.m. Perfect. I'll be there on time. Valeria, Don Roberto paused. I want you to know that I spoke with Martinez, an engineer at your company last night. He told me all about your career. He told me that you turned down offers from larger companies to stay with Transportes del Norte because you value loyalty. That says a lot about you. Valeria was surprised by the comment. Thank you, Mr. Garza. I just do my job as best I can. Well, you do it very well. Call me when you finish the delivery. The Manufacturas del Bajío company was located in the Salto Industrial Zone southeast of Guadalajara. Valeria arrived at exactly 7:55 in the morning. The plant was modern and imposing, with 3 metal-framed industrial buildings, a 2-story administrative area with a glass facade, and a large maneuvering yard where several forklifts and cargo trucks were waiting. At the main entrance, a security guard in a navy blue uniform stopped her. Good morning. What brings you here? Good morning. I'm Valeria Sanchez from Transportes del Norte. I have a delivery for engineer Fernando Ruiz. The guard checked his list on an electronic tablet. Aha, here you are. But it says the operator is Joaquin Morales. There was a last-minute change. Here are my documents and the updated service order. The guard checked everything carefully. Then he spoke on the radio. After a few minutes, he opened the gate. "Go ahead. Go to warehouse number 2. They'll receive you there." Valeria drove the trailer precisely through the industrial complex until she reached the indicated warehouse. In front of her, a man in his 50s wearing a yellow helmet, a reflective vest, and a folder under his arm was waiting with a team of workers. It was engineer Fernando Ruiz. Valeria parked the trailer with an impeccable maneuver, got out, and approached him. "Good morning, Engineer Ruiz. I'm Valeria Sanchez. I'm bringing the shipment from Monterrey." The engineer looked at her with obvious surprise, then with an expression that mixed confusion and annoyance. "Where's Joaquin?" he asked directly without saying hello. "Joaquin always works with us. I know how he works. Don Joaquin had a family emergency. The company assigned me to the job. Here are all the documents, the security seals intact, and photographs of the loading process that I took personally in Monterrey." Valeria handed him the folder containing all the documents. The engineer took them almost brusquely and began to review them while his workers watched the scene in silence. "This is very irregular," muttered the engineer. "This machinery is worth millions. I can't just accept it." "With all due respect, engineer," Valeria interrupted in a firm but professional voice, "the security seals are intact, which means that no one has accessed the cargo since it left Monterrey. I have time-stamped photographs documenting every stage of the process. And if you check the trailer's GPS, you will see the exact route I followed, without any detours. Everything is in order according to your company's protocols and mine." The engineer looked up from the documents and looked directly at her. There was something about Valeria's determination that reminded him of his own daughter, who was also struggling to make her way in a male-dominated field, aerospace engineering. He sighed. "All right, let's check the cargo." Over the next hour, the team of workers carefully unloaded each piece of machinery under the supervision of Engineer Ruiz. Valeria remained present throughout the process, verifying that each item matched the inventory list and that there was no damage. The engineer personally inspected each piece with meticulous detail. He checked the boxes, the protections, the straps. He took notes in his folder. Finally, after checking the last piece, he approached Valeria. "Everything is perfect," he admitted, and for the first time, his face showed a less tense expression. "There isn't a single scratch. The straps were correctly positioned. Even the additional protections are better placed than in previous deliveries. Thank you, engineer. I made sure everything was according to specifications." "How many years have you been doing this?" 5.5. "And how many accidents have you had?" "None." "Late deliveries?" "None." The engineer nodded slowly, then held out his hand. "I apologize for my initial attitude. I'm old school, and sometimes my prejudices get the better of me. But the work speaks for itself, and yours is excellent. Welcome to Guadalajara, Valeria." Valeria shook his hand with a genuine smile. "Thank you, Engineer Ruiz. It means a lot coming from you." "Boy, have you had breakfast?" he asked suddenly. "We have an employee cafeteria here at the company. Breakfast is on me." Valeria, surprised by his kindness, accepted. Minutes later, they were sitting in the company cafeteria, a spacious, clean space with stainless steel tables. The engineer ordered chilaquiles and coffee for both of them. "You know," the engineer began as they waited for their food, "I have a daughter your age. She's studying aerospace engineering. Every day she tells me about the difficulties she faces, professors who underestimate her, classmates who don't take her seriously, companies that doubt her abilities. And as a father, I sometimes feel powerless." He paused to take a sip of coffee. "But when I see someone like you, who not only does her job but does it exceptionally well despite all the barriers, it gives me hope. It makes me think that my daughter will succeed too." Valeria felt a warmth in her chest. Those words meant more than any payment. "Engineer, your daughter will succeed. If she has even half the discipline you have taught her, I'm sure she'll be an exceptional engineer." "Thank you, Valeria. And listen, I'm going to talk to Roberto Garza personally. I'm going to ask him to have you handle all deliveries from Monterrey from now on. You're reliable, professional, and meticulous. That's exactly what we need." Valeria was speechless for a moment. "I don't know what to say." "Thank you. No, thank you for reminding me that I shouldn't judge people by their appearance, but by their work." After breakfast, Valeria signed the final delivery documents and said goodbye to Engineer Ruiz and his team. Before getting into the trailer, she called Don Roberto. Mr. Garza, the shipment has been delivered. Everything is perfect. Engineer Ruiz signed the receipt without any comments. Excellent. I just got a call from Fernando. He told me you're the best operator he's ever worked with. He specifically asked me to have you handle all future shipments. Valeria smiled broadly. I'm glad to hear that, sir. Valeria, I have to confess something. Don Roberto continued, his voice becoming more serious. When you arrived yesterday, I didn't believe in you. I thought I was going to make a mistake. My prejudices blinded me. But you proved to be more professional, more dedicated, and more reliable than many operators I've worked with in 30 years. I owe you an apology. No need to apologize, Mr. Garza. I understand you had to protect your business. The important thing is that you trusted me to do the job. Well, now I not only trust you, I want to offer you something. How would you like to work exclusively for my company? I would give you a direct contract with better conditions, a new trailer, well-paid fixed routes, and additional benefits. I've been looking to expand my fleet, and I need people I can trust. Valeria was silent, processing the offer. It was a huge opportunity. It would mean stability, better income, recognition. But it would also mean leaving Transporte del Norte, the company that had trusted her when no one else did, where Engineer Martinez had supported her unconditionally. Mr. Garza, it's a very generous offer, and I appreciate it greatly, she replied carefully. But I have a commitment to Transporte del Norte. They believed in me when I was just a beginner. Engineer Martinez gave me opportunities when others rejected me. I can't turn my back on them now that things are going well. There was a silence on the other end, then a sincere laugh. I knew you were going to say that. That confirms that you are exactly the person I thought you were. You have loyalty, and that's more valuable than any technical skill. All right, I respect your decision, but the offer stands. And anyway, I want you to know that from now on, all my important loads will go with your company, but I'll specifically request that you be the one to transport them. That would be perfect, Mr. Garza. Thank you very much. No, thank you, Valeria. Have a safe trip back to Monterrey. Valeria hung up and sat in the trailer cab for a moment, letting everything that had happened in the last 24 hours sink in. She had left Monterrey as a more questioned and underestimated operator. She was returning as someone who had proven her worth, earned respect, and opened doors not only for herself but for other women who would come after her. Before starting the engine, she sent a message to the Transporte del Norte WhatsApp group. Delivery completed in Guadalajara. Satisfied customer. See you soon in Monterrey. Biceps, flex tow truck. Congratulatory messages soon arrived from her fellow operators. Even Engineer Martinez wrote her a private message. I knew you could do it, Valeria. You are a credit to the company. We have more important routes for you. The trip back to Monterrey was completely different from the trip there. Valeria drove with renewed confidence, her head held high. At every gas station where she stopped, at every rest area, the looks of surprise continued. But now she faced them with a calm smile. At one of the stops in Aguascalientes, she recognized the truck belonging to the woman she had helped during the storm. It was parked at the gas station. The woman was filling up with gas when she saw Valeria's red trailer approaching. Her eyes lit up, and she ran towards her when Valeria got out. Valeria, I can't believe it. I was looking for you on social media to thank you, but I didn't know your full name. How are you? Did you get to your destination okay? Yes, thanks to you. My kids can't stop talking about the lady with the big truck who saved us. The woman took out her phone. Please let me take a picture of you and give you a hug. You are my hero. Valeria, a little embarrassed but happy, agreed. The woman posted the photo on her Facebook page with a touching caption telling the story. She didn't know that the post would go viral in the next few hours, shared by thousands of people in Mexico, turning Valeria into an inspiring symbol. When Valeria arrived in Monterrey the next afternoon, she found something unexpected at Transporte del Norte. There was a small group of people waiting for her, Engineer Martinez, several of his fellow operators, and surprisingly, some young women with signs that said, "Thank you for paving the way. Women drive too." Engineer Martinez approached her with a smile from ear to ear. "Valeria, you've become famous. The post by the woman you helped went viral. You have over 20,000 shares. Several media outlets want to interview you, and best of all, we've received applications from 5 other young women who want to work as operators. They say you inspired them. Valeria felt overwhelmed. She looked at the young women waiting for her with signs, at her colleagues applauding her, and felt tears welling up, but she held them back. Engineer, I just did my job. No, Valeria, you did much more than that. You changed people's perceptions. You proved that gender does not define ability, and that is invaluable. That night in her small apartment in Monterey, Valeria sat down at her computer and read the hundreds of messages she had received on social media. Messages from young women saying that she had inspired them to pursue careers in male-dominated fields. Messages from parents saying they would show her story to their daughters. Messages from men acknowledging their own prejudices and promising to change. But the message that moved her the most was a short and simple one from an unknown number. Hi, Valeria. I'm the daughter of engineer Fernando Ruiz. My dad told me your story. Thank you for showing that it can be done. Today I presented my thesis project with more confidence thanks to you. You are an inspiration, Valeria replied. Thank you, but remember, inspiration is only the beginning. Hard work and perseverance are what really count. You can achieve anything you set your mind to. Good luck in your career. She closed her computer and looked out the window of her apartment at the illuminated city of Monterey. Tomorrow she would have another route, another load, another challenge. But now she knew that every kilometer she traveled, every delivery she completed, was not just for her, but for all the women who would come after her. As she was getting ready for bed, her phone rang one last time. It was Don Roberto Garza. Valeria, I forgot to tell you something important. My 16-year-old granddaughter saw your story on Facebook. She asked me if she could meet you someday. She says she wants to be like you when she grows up. Thank you for being an example to the next generation. Valeria smiled and replied, It will be an honor to meet her, Mr. Garza. Tell her that the road isn't easy, but it's worth every effort. And with that note of hope, Valeria turned off the light and closed her eyes, ready for the next journey, the next challenge, to continue paving the way. No,